We're now going to move along to the 1950s, and I'd like you to give a big welcome to Bill Davies.
I got my captain working for me, captain working for me, captain working for me now.
Thank you, Vaughan. Ladies and gentlemen, I think the first thing I ought to say is an enormous vote of thanks to all of those people who have kept alive the spirit of 5KA, which in its day was wonderful. What made the station was the people in it, and the people in it believed that they had to share what they were doing with the people who heard us and listened to us. I'd like, for example, to tell you at this quick stage that People Store's Community Sing people brought so many people into the same family as the rest of us at 5KA. There are some of them here today, some tonight. I'll bet you now if I said, is anybody here who was in the audience of People Store's Community Sing, somebody might stand up. I'll try. There's one, there might be more. What I wanted to say really, though, was that that station was a good station. It did not have any network affiliations. It's still on its own 2 feet in this town for these people and worked hard. The guys there were good, and so were the girls. The team was great. I was there from 1946 until 1959, when I and lots of others went into television. I'd like you to see the team that was there in those years, and all those people between 1946 and 1959 who were there. Would you stand up so you can be seen as the starting point of the 5KA that came after the war? Now, that's enough from me because they did the job. I'd like them to come up here, and they've got to come up this stairway and come on here. And there's Rex Heading, who did so much for that station, so much, and so much more in television later. Lionel Williams, Lionel and Doreen. John Doherty. John Doherty turned into one of the greatest newsreaders we ever had in television, came out of our radio station. Max Hall, grim and grisly, described the football with me and did it well for years. Bob Moore, where are you, Bob? We saw Desi and she's still looking wonderful. Where are you? Good. Oh, you're not too bad either. Here he is. And who else? I think of all the people that aren't here anymore. I think of the Pat Hodginses and the Rod Douglases and all sorts of other people. And of Vaughan Harvey, of the big voice who's doing things tonight for us. And of Malcolm Benjer, who set our library in order and who then went on to do other good things and organised a wonderful reunion for all of the 5KA people about 6 or 7 years ago in North Adelaide, and that was wonderful. Rex Leverington's here. He's down there somewhere hiding, and there are many others from 5KA who are here. But this team that are here now, I think, are the people who started the post-war 5KA. We're all sorry that the frequency isn't there anymore and the name isn't there, but it's all gone well. So thank you very much. Now here's Rex. He's got something to tell you.
I didn't know that. Well, I guess we can talk for a long time about those days because we did all sorts of things that we really didn't think much about at the time, I suppose. But in retrospect, looking back, we had a lot of fun. We made all sorts of shows because we were an independent station. We weren't tied up to Macquarie or major networks. We had to do our own thing, and we did things that were like voices at the organ and minstrel shows and you name it, we did it at some stage. But we did, it was true. And so we had a lot of fun doing those sorts of shows. We did all sorts of shows that went to other states in strange way, and we did Swallows parades and all sorts of other bits and pieces. But we all had to do just about everything there was to do in radio, and radio in those days was a lot of fun to do. I don't know, afterwards it got to be playing records and being a rock station and going through all the other things that happened, but in those early days before television and before a lot of us moved out, my period was 1940 8 until 1959. And during that time, we just learnt how to do a whole lot of things, which we then, some of us anyway, carried on into television. And it was great grounding for the things that happened later on in our lives. But it was a great place because we did it, and we didn't sit on the end of a landline from somewhere else, as is the case so much these days. But that's my bit. Lionel, do you want to say something?
Yeah. Thanks, Rex. There's one lovely lady who can't be here tonight, and she was desperate to come over. She's living in Melbourne now with her new husband, and I'm referring to Doreen Govett. You heard Margaret Baker say earlier, and that is a justified round of applause too, because she's a terrific talent. She's getting on in years now, and I won't be unkind and say how many, but she's still singing beautifully and magnificently playing the piano. She's not lost her skills, and I owe her such a lot, because she, in her own way, was a perfectionist, and if it wasn't as best as it could be, you didn't do it. And it was a lesson that I think everybody took some heart from learning. Now, Doreen would have been with us tonight, but was unable to do so. She and I started to work together. You heard Margaret Baker say earlier that she had a lunchtime program, which I think was about an hour or an hour and a quarter long. So she and I don't know whether it was Bill's idea, get together, gag up the ads, sing and play. That started off as a half an hour, and over a period of about 4 years extended to an hour and a quarter. And we loved doing it. It was time consuming, but very fulfilling. I think that's the only word. And I'm sorry in a way that she couldn't be here tonight to hear those words spoken about her, not only by me, but for everybody else too. John Doherty.
Lawlers destroy the pest and repair the damage. When white ants worry you, phone LU 65004.
Lawlers, the white ant people.
It's not John Doherty, it's Bob Moore.
I couldn't possibly pitch it that high, Rex, no. I remember the day we did that in the little curved studios over in the back of the old 5KA auditorium, and Reggie Quarrell, who was a marvellous natural musician, was doing a bit of a fako on the keyboard, up, down, and we were going progressively higher with the notes, and we said, that'll do, there's no more left. Well, that ad went round the whole country, radio and television, for years, and I became a millionaire as a result.
Oh, yes, good one. Yeah, yes.
Well, that really quietened you down, didn't it? Because you haven't got the foggiest idea what it is. But it's the introductory theme to a program called Philosopher's Scrapbook, which was presented each Monday night at 8:30 by the then General Manager Eric Pearce. Eric was one of the most impeccably dressed men that I'd ever met in my life, and every Monday afternoon at about 3:30, he would wander down into the studio and he would wander in with a whole pile of books. He would sit down in the studio, he would light his pipe, get himself into the mood, and he would then do this program called Philosopher's Scrapbook. I used to sit in the presentation studio and spin all the records, and we had a lot of fun, and it was a program, I guess, which was very, very distinctive back in those days. As Rex pointed out, we weren't a member of a network. It was something that we had to do individually, and we did it. It rated very, very well indeed. But they were great days. Thank you very much, and it's lovely to see so many faces that I haven't seen for so many years. Bye.
I'd like to introduce now someone who was the mainstay of the record library at 5KA for many, many years, Mr. Music Man, Malcolm Benger.
Good evening, fellow 5KA staff members, and welcome to this magnificent function right here behind the Adelaide Oval tonight. They must be scraping the bottom of the barrel to ask me to come up and perhaps tell 2 or 3 stories. 2 stories concern people that aren't here tonight, unfortunately, and one other concerns our Grand General Manager, Mr. Bill Davies, and I'm sure he'll get a kick out of the story as well, if he can remember it. First up is a story of Bill Long, who was an announcer, or jock if you like, if you're after 1970. He used to do the drive time show between 4 and 6 each night. And somebody, we don't know who, ripped the green felt on the turntable, so therefore you couldn't put a record on it and play it. So it was suggested that Bill might go and buy some replacement felt for the turntable. He didn't know where to go, so the chief technician, George Matthews, said, go over to Charles Moore's. They've got some over there. So Bill goes over to Charles Moore's, looking, can't find anything at all. Where is this green felt? So he was about to walk out when one sweet young thing came up and said, yes, sir, can I help you? He said, oh, yes, you certainly can. Can you tell me where I can get felt round here? The second one concerns one of the best general managers we ever had, Mr. Bill Davies, and when he became general manager in the 50s, it came to his notice that there was rather a large amount of 78s being broken each week, and when you had to replace them, the cost of running the station went up dramatically. So he called me into the office and said, Malcolm, this excessive breakage has got to stop. Have you any ideas how to stop the breakage? And I said, no, not really. So he said, tomorrow morning I'll come down to the record library, have a chat to the 4 girls and yourself and see if we can come up with some solution to this problem. So the next morning, just after 9 o'clock, in came Mr. Davies and said, good morning, girls, good morning. It's come to my notice that too many 78s are being broken. Now this has got to stop. And at that precise moment, he sat down on the top of a table, which one of the girls was sitting behind, on a bundle of 78s and broke the lot. The last one, I've got to set a scene. This was about 1949 or 1950 when tea ladies weren't invented at 5KA. And certain departments had to make tea for themselves and the department next door. And when it came to a Friday, as you would all know, that you, especially on a long weekend, you had to get stuff ready 3 or 4 days in advance. And if you were the unfortunate person that had to make the tea and then go and wash up all the dishes, you got very annoyed. And the lass that had to do it on this particular Friday was a lady called Margaret Foster, who got married and was called Margaret Baker, who you saw on the screen just a while ago. So to set the scene from Pitt Street, which ran along the side of KA, there was a veranda which divided the ground floor to the office department. And Margaret thought, oh dear, I cannot be blowed with all the work we've got to do, going down to Studio 4 and joining the queue with all the other departments and washing up the dishes. So she thought, what I will do, I'll get all the mugs and all the cups and pour it into the great big brown pot of sloppy tea, and I shall go into Studio 1, open up the window and throw all the slops out onto the veranda below us. So this she did, went into the studio, wound up the window, threw the slops out, went completely over the veranda and hit a bride dressed in white that was going into the church to get married. I thank you and enjoy your evening.